Hey guys and welcome to part 1 to what if Kakashi trained Naruto instead of Sasuke, and what I mean by that is during the, or at least somewhat the, like 1 month period of time between pretty much the 1 month period of time they sort of got to train where Naruto asked Kakashi train him, to which he dumped him on Ebisu, to which Naruto then, or at least Jiraiya ended up signing up to become Naruto's pretty much instructor for that month, teaching him really nothing useful besides from the Toad summoning contract, in which, anyway, so instead of somewhat that, what if Kakashi instead accepted Naruto somewhat, had decided to train Naruto instead, and so had somewhat accepted Naruto's request, and instead Ebisu was to train Sasuke instead. What would have happened if Kakashi had actually thought more about it? And let's get into this. Also, the reason why I'm doing part 1 to this and not part 2 to the other what if is simply because somewhat, or at least the next week, the week after, the last 2 weeks of the month, I'll be taking somewhat off, and I'll have to sort of pre-record. So I'm just seeing what types of somewhat what ifs you guys would like, and then potentially doing a part 2 to that or those different what ifs, and maybe some other somewhat older what ifs. So if you want a next part to a specific what if that I've done, do tell me in the comments down below of the pretty much somewhat from this what if and onwards for the next week. Just tell me a part a what if you may want a next part to the exact title, so I know which one. And if that series is finished, then I'll just be ignoring it. Anyway, let's get into this part. With that out of the way, so Kakashi would be, at least it'd be kind of standing there as it'd be somewhat, he'd be kind of watching Gaara and Lee's fight, and he'd be somewhat thinking about kind of somewhat or at least initially training Sasuke, as he'd witnessed Lee drop these weights in the crate, he'd start kind of wondering potentially if Sasuke would be the best, potentially the best after all. So, and he'd think about potentially Naruto and his fight, and he'd immediately kind of go, I want to win, though he'd then somewhat go, well, of course, Sasuke would be the best shot, though. Then he'd somewhat backtrack and go, or at least though he'd somewhat really look at Naruto, he'd be keep behind. You'd start kind of more thinking and go, well, if I were to potentially teach him the Rasengan, then there's a chance but he won't learn it in a month. Though, how do I know he wouldn't learn it in a month? Sure, I didn't learn it in a month, but he could, and heck, even if he has to use a shadow clone, it's still, he's still able to do it, and plus, well, he'd have a better chance to get into Gaara, considering the fact he's also Jinchuriki. Though that would require me having the seats in some elemental ninjutsu, and all these, and considering the fact that Sasuke already has some fire, of course there is a chance that Sasuke has a different element, but it's somewhat like it's a chance that he does, but a low chance, while something Naruto doesn't know. And even if his sort of course elemental sort of affinity isn't kind of either water or land, I could still teach him that. Plus he has to teach Sasuke and Jutsu, so any information the clones learn would be passed back to him, so he could actually shrink down the time and learn, practically any sort of jutsu in a much shorter period of time. And he'd kind of stand there, kind of sort of seemingly, paying attention to the fight, and he was somewhat, but he'd be more thinking about just that, who would be better against Gaara, would Sasuke or Naruto, and think that, well, for Sasuke, something like that, Sasuke had a high chance of kind of becoming rogue. He'd realise that if he trained Sasuke, that would require to teach Sasuke potentially his signature jutsu, the Chidori, and then having that on his conscious if Sasuke were to go rogue and potentially use it, to actually harm or kill someone, that would be, on him. Whilst Naruto, he'd be teaching something that Naruto would have learned if Minato or Kushina if Jiraiya had actually done his job as his godfather, as Naruto's godfather, or be it Minato or Kushina actually been alive, he would have had to learn the Rasengan, something that was, was somewhat his right to learn, pretty much. And so he knew that Naruto had due to just naturally being Uzumaki, Naruto had a much lower chance of actually going rogue, and the only chance he would have gone rogue would be if the village forced him to, if he was actually forced to go rogue, and at that point Kakashi would probably join him. And so that, and Naruto was also unlikely, to harm anyone, with it, or at least harm anyone that, in a spar sort with it, as he probably wouldn't even use it, whilst Sasuke potentially would try to use it in a spar to quote somebody else to, to use their strong attack against it. And as Naruto didn't have obviously a superiority complex. And that, and plus teaching Naruto the sort of Rasengan would give him a much higher chance against it'd kind of something be perfect for him, as that both as a chakra control exercise, as well as obviously giving him an A rank jutsu. And so pondering over it more, the cards just stacked more and more in training Naruto as well. And eventually, it came that, or at least it'd come down to whom he was kind of more attracted to, Minato or Obito. And once Obito had given him, eye that he doesn't, that he doesn't really use, that much. Right now, he gave him his eye. And but that was only because he was going to die. And, or at least somewhat Minato had, taught him, had been there through, the highs and lows, and he'd been there when nobody else, was. And he owed more to both Minato and Kushina than he did to Obito and the entire Uchiha clan. So he'd allow a mental sigh, and he'd resolve itself to train Naruto, and he hoped he didn't make a mistake on choosing Naruto. And so course, like, after, if there was any other fights, after Gar and Leash, I don't think there were, but they may have been. But yeah, after that, somewhat. Well, no, actually, well, no. So Kakashi didn't really think, or at least know about whom Naruto was going against, but it. Well, yeah, anyway. And so ironically, as his result would build around training Naruto, he then kind of realised that Sasuke would have to kind of had his Sharingan, but also the fact that and the second he started kind of questioning that, his mind was like, yeah, but he also has, Orochimaru's curse mark, and Orochimaru's going to be after him, and yeah. So as a result, it just continued to build, and by the end of it, or at least, yeah, it's like when everyone would leave, you'd know that Naruto would more or less, probably go to the, hospital. Or at least, well, because he'd disappeared, pretty much immediately, so he'd figured that would be what Naruto would think it would be. Or as it'd be the day after, so would it be the same day? I'm pretty sure it was the day after, but then again it could have been the same day. Yeah, I think it was the same day anyway, yeah. So no, he'd leave, to kind of check on Sasuke, and yeah, and also kind of ask Ebisu if he'd be willing to kind of train Sasuke and kind of just knock some sense into him as well. Yeah, he'd hopefully do his pride a good helping, or at least helping for him to realise that, if he acts like a jockey, he isn't going to, get the train, he isn't going to get, his some training and that. And yeah. Anyway, so yeah, though you'd though you'd see Naruto and go, Naruto would obviously walk up to him and ask him to it. He'd go, well, I was actually going to go and look for you. It's like, really? Does that mean that? Yes, I'll be training you, Naruto. To which Chido Kakashi would reprimand him by telling him to be quiet, that he was, in a hospital, a place for healing. To which Naruto would immediately quiet down and would apologise. And yeah, from there though, Kakashi would put a hand on him as they would then somewhat seem to disappear and reappear in. So they would leave, and Kakashi would tell him to kind of pack his things as they'd be leaving Konoha for the month. Some period, so nobody could kind of interrupt them or that, or spy, on them. To which Naruto would nod, and he'd do so, as he'd also had cleared it with Hiruzen, though Hiruzen was somewhat surprised that Kakashi had decided to go and cheat Naruto, and though after hearing Kakashi somewhat reasoning to why he chose Naruto over Sasuke, it did somewhat kind of make sense that, because the Chidori was obviously an A-rank assassination jutsu, and that Sasuke had a high chance at, obviously becoming a rogue ninja, and he didn't want it on his conscience, that Sasuke was out there killing people using his jutsu, and nor did he want, it in the state's hands at all. So and so much that, the Rasengan was technically, a birthright of Naruto's. It was a jutsu that Naruto should, and has all right to know, as it was his father that had created it for his mother, to whom Rich named it, and in the state that it would be fitting that Naruto would be the one to truly complete and master it. And yeah, and to which Hiruzen would sort of nod at that, he'd ask him, you sure you sort of believe he could get it down within a month? To which Kakashi would go, well, we just kind of have to see now, aren't we, Hokage-sama? He is the, well, kind of has most unpredictable shinobi, and, well, he'd just be somewhat living up to that now, wouldn't he, if he were to truly complete or at least sort of the learning of an A-rank jutsu. And yeah, though I do plan on teaching him more than just that. Oh, really? It's like, hi, though you'll have to wait until then, Hokage-sama. To which Hiruzen would sort of nod, though he would be interested in kind of knowing what Kakashi would teach Naruto. And so from there, well, yeah, that was sort of that. And yeah, so from there, a couple minutes later, Naruto would meet up with Kakashi, who would be at the front gate, and from there they would sort of leave as they'd go to pretty much where he trained Sasuke, pretty much for the month. And yeah, as that was definitely outside of Konoha. Anyway, yeah, so sort, and yeah, though only sort on their way, they would just kind of stop at a stream, to which Naruto would kind of sort of ask, or at least doing, the journey what he'd kind of sort of teach him, to which Kakashi would sort of just say that or at least that he'd be teaching him a sort of few things and potentially a jutsu or two. Naruto would kind of get excited and would state sort of that they'd be powerful in that, to which Kakashi would or at least Kakashi would state, or well, that if there was something flashy or that, and Kakashi would sort of size, he'd look at Naruto and he'd go, the flashy ones are the ones that kill the user. Naruto would be confused at that, and you could see it as he'd say, the flashy ones aren't the ones that strong. Naruto, there's a reason why they're flashy, as they trade their overall strength to being, well, flashy, to being look kind of, seemingly nice and all powerful, but ones that look powerful don't necessarily mean they are powerful. I thought there are two fire jutsus, one called Fireball and one called Great Fireball. Now, which one do you think is stronger? Naruto, Great Fireball, right? Wrong. Great Fireball, whilst much bigger, is slower, but also whilst it covers a larger area, it requires more chakra, and also, as I said, is slower. Fireball jutsu is big enough to hide a kunai or shuriken with inside it, moves fast enough so that they would obviously be hidden, and of course they also have power as they're more denser. The Great Fireball is kind of a kind of blown up version of the sort of fireball, and you'll learn what I mean by that during a period of training, to which Naruto just kind of nod. And yeah, though firstly, I will somewhat be teaching you a chakra control exercise just to kind of get it out of the way now. To which Naruto would kind of like a groan, though Kakashi would state that if he was going to complain, then he wouldn't be teaching him anything, and that he'd go back to Konoha and and he could have ABC whilst he takes Sasuke. To which Naruto would immediately kind of shut up and would straighten up and would state that he wouldn't complain anymore. And yeah, and so from there, Kakashi would proceed to kind of show him water walking, and after about 2-3 minutes. Naruto would get it down pretty easily, and yeah. Kakashi would somewhat be somewhat surprised, as he knew most people did struggle somewhat with this, like tree walking, and the fact that Naruto struggled so much with tree walking. Though you'd also somewhat have to remember that Naruto and Sasuke's reserves were there was a massive gap between that, which meant Naruto would have naturally much harder time. Though the fact that there was only a day in between he and Sasuke when it came to tree walking, and then the fact that Naruto got water walking down in 3 minutes or so, told him that kind of just somewhat how much actual control Naruto had over such a large amount of chakra. And yeah, it just showed just how underrated Naruto really was, which kind of reinforced his resolvement that was already pretty strong, but it just made it even stronger, his choice to train Naruto instead of Sasuke. And yeah, so from there they would continue onwards to these somewhat stone plates, to which Naruto had asked kind of once they were there why they were here, to which Kakashi would state that that they would provide a kind of somewhat, or at least they'd provide a kind of mark to see how good his control is of the jutsu that is somewhat going to learn. And yeah, that would be exciting. I would ask what what it was, to which Kakashi would say that he'd learned in the name once he completes the steps to learn it, to which Naruto would go step sensei, to which Kakashi would nod, saying that it was a complex jutsu, a jutsu in which only 2 people alive can use it. And yeah, Naruto would be surprised, and Kakashi stated that it took the creator about 4 years to create, and well, the person who made it never mastered it, and yeah, never truly completed the jutsu. And the jutsu is usable, but it's not truly complete. In other words, it's not truly as powerful as the creator had seen its potential. And again, you'll potentially understand what I mean once you've actually completed the training, and once you know of its name and its greatest name, which I'll tell you once you have learned it. Okay? Hi, Sensei. Good. Now then, you'd chuck a water balloon towards Naruto, and you'd go, your first sword god as Naruto would catch it, kind of confused as to why now as a water balloon, to which he goes, is to pop that water balloon as Naruto go, oh, that's easy, with just your chakra. Naruto would hunt that out with my chakra. How? To which Kakashi would pull out a water balloon, and he'd go, look, as he'd somewhat show Naruto, and he'd slowly form the chakra within the ball, as within the water balloon, as it would slowly start to, the spikes would start to of course form, before it would finally somewhat pop. Yeah, and then go, what I did there was use my chakra in such a way that it caused the water balloon to pop, to expand to a point of where it just popped. And yeah, though what I want you to do, so try that, and I'll explain more about it after you've tried to. So then about an hour or two later, Kakashi would tell him, or at least that the first step is some part of the water balloon, that, or at least to pop it, he would need to rotate the water, and he'd tell him to rotate it in, or at least into 2 different directions, and try rotating it first, try turning water to the right first and then to the left, and then somewhat see which one was easier to do. Naruto would ask him why, to which Kakashi tell him that every person has a natural chakra rotation, and that the chakra within their chakra coils rotates either to the left or to the right, and that going with your chakra's rotation, your chakra's natural rotation, is easier, and like at the moment that's what they'll be doing, though eventually it'd be learning to do the jutsu against his chakra's natural rotation, which would make it a lot harder, and thus his chakra control would increase a lot more. But for now, this was a jutsu, not a chakra control exercise, though it did double as both, being so complex and all. And yeah, though Naruto nod, and yeah. And it would take him about a day or two to sort of do, though, and yeah. Once he got that down, Kakashi would hand him a rubber balloon and would simply tell him to pop that, and that might of course be harder, which now, and yeah, and that this step was power. The first was rotation, this is power. And yeah, Naruto was kind of confused to somewhat what jutsu kind of required rotation and power, but yeah, trying to sort of rack his mind if he knew sort of any jutsu's name that kind of rotated, but he didn't. And yeah, so he'd do so, and about a week later, once he did manage to pop it within the week, it was only a kind of small hole, whilst Kakashi was looking at the entire destruction of the actual rubber balloon to it, rubber ball, to which he'd tell Naruto. And yeah, so somewhat a week and a half later, he would manage to actually entirely pop the rubber ball, to which Kakashi then throw him another sort of water balloon, though catching this one he'd realise it was a lot lighter. And yeah, Kakashi would say that it was pretty much that this step was the last step, and it was compression. Naruto would kind of be confused, as Kakashi would explain that the jutsu required rotation, power, and that if he somewhat did both of those, it would continue to expand, as Naruto go, oh, like the rubber ball, which then caused it to pop, and you'd go, exactly. What you're somewhat next trying to do is to compress it to within the the water balloon, because that's what would fit in your hand somewhat comfortably. And yeah, and though Naruto would kind of ask if he could see it, to which Kakashi would somewhat do it in his sort of free hand, as the other one would be hold out his hand as he'd perceive to form it, and he'd go and this is the jutsu, to which Naruto would just kind of start it, and this is what it does, as you'd perceive to turn around and thrust his arm out into the sort of rock, and Naruto would just witness as rock would just go flying seemingly everywhere, as it would just drill through the rock like it was nothing. And yeah, and go, and that's somewhat it, and just think, if that's what it does on rock, just how deadly would it be on a person, to which Naruto would kind of go wide-eyed, to which Kakashi would tell him that it was an A-rank jutsu, a very much powerful and very complex jutsu, to which Naruto would kind of nod, and a jutsu very hard to do. And yeah, and so Naruto would kind of wrap his mind around couldn't even believe the fact that it was that powerful, yet it still wasn't truly complete. Kind of screamed at him just how much more powerful would it be? Just how much powerful would it be? And, well, yeah, the Sonic Fox side of him kind of knew what that last step inquired, what truly completed it meant, which would be adding one's elemental affinity to it. And to be honest, Fox couldn't help but be intrigued that Jutsu single-handedly went up against his own Tailed Beast Ball. Tailed Beast Ball or Tailed Beast Bomb, and won against it. And yeah, so he knew that Jutsu, whilst being much smaller than Tailed Beast Ball, was damn strong. And the fact that it could be even stronger, and the fact, he was curious what would happen if one truly, managed to add on the elemental affinity. Just how strong would it be? How devastating would it be? And yeah, and so on. So Naruto would start down, as he'd sort of constantly be pretty much, or at least he'd pop, a few sort of balloons to the point of Kakashi would simply tell him to somewhat that he'd know what it looks like and to know the damage, so he knows what it should be. And yeah, so he'd be throwing it, throwing it at the wall. And yeah, though he'd sort of remind Naruto that getting annoyed wasn't going to help him, and that he should just somewhat take a couple of breaths to calm himself down, as he'd just lose control of his chakra, making it even harder. And yeah, though Kakashi wouldn't tell him, how long it took him to learn the jutsu or that, as well, he'd tell him afterwards. It'd make, Naruto really realise just how difficult it was. And yeah, though eventually Naruto would somewhat, or at least, though after nearing after nearing a week, and knowing that he only had a few days left, about 8 days or so left, so he'd end up realising, what if I just used a shadow clone, to share the load? After all, if he couldn't currently do both at once, then, well, surely a shadow clone could aid him. It was him after all. So he'd try to, and Kakashi wouldn't say nothing. He'd, or at least the next day, Naruto would explain to him, and Kakashi would go, well, try it. And he'd go, but I wouldn't be able to do it with, and Kakashi would shrug, so it'd just be something it'd be a goal for you to do after this month now, wouldn't it? It'd give you something to do in your personal time now, wouldn't it, Naruto? To which he'd nod. And so he would, and yeah, and so Kakashi would watch as Naruto would indeed form it. And yeah, he wasn't all that surprised, as it was, after all, it was a complex jutsu that required a lot of things to do right, and that is also the benefit of the Rasengan, was it was a do and forget. You just done it, and you just once it was done and spinning, once it was created, you just fed it chakra, and it just kept on going. And yeah, once it was up and running, it was a lot easier to do. And yeah, the effort to pretty much keep it going dropped massively. Anyway, and yeah, and just seeing as his hand would just, sort of feeling as his hand would continue to simply sink inwards, he'd open them to just see it drilling through the rock, and and finally he'd sort of stop it, and he'd go, I did it. I actually did it. Well done, Naruto. Though you did use a shadow clone, but as I said, you'll train to do that in your personal time. And note, that will be your goal, to get it down to just your hand. After all, in a battle, your enemy isn't going to give you that time to make a shadow clone to form the jutsu, to form the Rasengan. Rasengan, is that the name of it? Yes. And the Rasengan was created by none other than the fourth Hokage. The fourth Hokage, really? Yes. And I was his student, and he, for whatever reason, had taught me it. I never really learnt his reason for why he taught me it, but he did, and well, I think it'd be the best jutsu that would suit you. You have a lot of chakra, and well, I somewhat figured that it'd suit you best. And Naruto would somewhat nod as he'd kind of run up to his sensei and give him a hug, kind of thanking him for teaching him, jutsu of the fourth Hokage. And though Naruto would then ask him, though that the jutsu was already powerful, and how is it not complete, to which Kakashi'd smile as he'd go, well, that's actually how I made my own jutsu, by mistake. He'd nod as he'd go, as he'd proceed to show Naruto the Chidori once more, as he'd go, he states, this jutsu Naruto was my try on adding my elemental affinity to the Rasengan. Elemental affinity? Yes. There are 5 chakra natures: wind, fire, earth, water. Wind, fire, earth, water. Wind, fire, earth, water, and lightning. My affinity is lightning, and before you ask, remember back during the land race, I did a water dragon against Zabazar, to which Naruto would immediately go, so it doesn't limit you? No. A affinity just means that you have, that it's easier to do jutsu, or at least it's initially easier, so when you're trying to learn an element or that, it's better to learn your the element that you have an affinity towards, as it would just be that much easier and faster to learn. Plus, you could just learn jutsus within your affinity, as well, your body naturally produces a small amount of that affinity, that element's chakra. But for right now, once I could test your affinity, where not really well, it depends on what your affinity is, but though, and the Rasengan will help you against your opponent. Naruto would go, as Naruto would for his eyebrows, I should ask kind of how, to which he'd state that his opponent, Neji Hyuga, was of course a part of the Hyuga clan, which they have an ability called rotation. It's a an ability where they spin and they let their chakra flow out of their hands, which create a dome of spinning chakra, and that anything or at least that touch that would be kind of shredded or deflected. And yeah, Naruto just somewhat would kind of nod to it and go, oh, that's why, because if it spins, then exactly, your Rasengan, the Rasengan is also jutsu of chakra that spins. And yeah, it'd be sort of a battle of chakra, willpower and stamina, but I bet you have much more chakra and stamina than that Hyuga Sonic has and may ever have. And yeah, so that's why, though Sonic, if you beat him, you'd be going up against Gaara. You believe Gaara defeat Sasuke? Yes, Naruto. He managed to remember Sonic Lee. Hi, Sensei. Well, Sonic Lee is much faster than Sasuke will be, or at least, but yeah. And even if I were to, train him, he still wouldn't be ready. Even if I taught him the Chidori, which would be able to pierce through his sand, somewhat being able to pierce it doesn't necessarily mean anything if he'd managed to get his sand back and easily keep Sasuke away from him. But then what good am I against it with only the Rasengan? Well, that's the thing, though, about sand is that it gets, it kind of gets very heavy very quickly when it absorbs water. Naruto kind of throws eyebrows to it and then go, you're going to teach me? Yes, I'm going to teach you a water technique, Naruto. It's not all that strong, though most jutsus that most jonin use aren't all that strong. The only reason why they are strong is because they add a load of chakra into it, because it's a simple jutsu that uses not that much chakra, while adding more chakra makes it more powerful. Okay, hi. And yeah, and so they would go down from rock, as they'd go down to a lake, not a lake, but a river, as Kakashi would start teaching him how to, or at least what water chakra felt like, and how to or at least the first stage of water manipulation. And yeah, and he'd tell Naruto that once he can start to manipulate a small amount of water, will be when he would start learning that jutsu. And yeah, and so the rest of the 8 days would go by, as Naruto would indeed manage to learn the jutsu in time without relying on the shadow clones at all. And yeah, just showing Kakashi just how fast Naruto could learn, and whilst he did have to, and yeah, though the amount of water Naruto could of course control and manipulate was very small, it would still work. And yeah, so the one thing though was that Naruto, or at least the chakra that the water chakra he could manipulate is similarly water, and or at least his control over the small amount of water chakra that he could produce similarly would resonate with the water within the atmosphere, allowing him to draw upon the water within the air itself, which was something surprising, as that was a relatively difficult thing to do, though the fact Naruto did it almost naturally well, yeah, maybe his affinity was water. He'd think, and was it was a growing kind of something within Kakashi to know Naruto's elemental affinity. But yeah, the fact that Naruto did initially somewhat struggle so much with learning water told him that it wasn't a water affinity, but definitely something potentially, maybe something to do with that, which would only somewhat mean either wind or fire, or maybe lightning, but kind of the only two kind of or at least the only other thing that kind of went with air would be, well, the wind itself. And yeah, anyway, though, from there though, and yeah, though he, so, so they sort of arrive, on time. That mainly is, well, obviously, so Naruto would very much kind of bug him that he, didn't want to be late, didn't want to, be late and that, and, well, yeah. So they would arrive on time, and yeah. And so, though, when they would sort of look at the sort of fights, Naruto would sort of, or at least would realise that Sasuke's fight would be the last fight, like in canon. The difference obviously Sasuke sort of would be there and was, curious and curious to know what jutsu, that sensei taught Naruto. And he was somewhat annoyed that, Kakashi had decided to train the dead last over him, the Uchiha. And yeah, though you'd figured he'd be able to, copy it with his Sharingan, eyes, pretty much kind of unknowingly not actually able to do so due to the fact it never required hand signs, and that he could only copy jutsus that had hand signs. So yeah. Anyway, so from there, the fight would initially pretty much with Neji would initially go down the same, up until when Neji would sort of first kind of show off the rotation, and that when his second time, or at least when Neji would sort of do it the second time, Naruto would start charging at him. Neji would notice that and would keep it up. And yeah, as he'd simply sort of, kind of mentally scoff, wondering, that he was a real idiot, thinking he could, try and get through it. And yeah, though, of course, that'd be, second one of him, that'd great. And yeah, to which, while everyone would simply see, Naruto, another Naruto put into existence, only Kakashi would notice the fact that Naruto seemingly only used a single hand sign for it, which it'd be surprised Naruto could do single hand signs. And yeah, you'd sort of have to maybe try, you'd have to kind of ask Naruto about that later. And yeah, though sort of watch as, once the clone was formed, he'd hold out his hand as the clone would perceive to kind of sort of spin, seemingly spin somewhat on top of his hand, and yeah, though his and would only would go wide at that, and yeah, as he'd know what Naruto was doing, and he'd mentally sort of realise that, and yeah, that Naruto had figured out a way to be able to do the sort of Rasengan without, or at least find a way around somewhat, or at least the last part, which was compression, as by that point you was, handling three different things: the rotation, the power, and then you was also trying to compress all of that down. So handing one task off to the shadow, to the shadow clone, or at least two of them, the rotation of the chakra and the compression of it, which were the two sort of kind of So, well, yeah, the two easiest things to do on the outside, Naruto himself could focus on the actual power of it. And yeah, and you'd watch as the Rasengan would form, and and the clone would and as the clone would would dispel itself, Naruto would yell out Rasengan as it throw his arm forward as it clash with the rotation of the jutsu. Neji's jutsu. And and so the Butte clan head would just, everyone would be so surprised. All the shinobi that knew of the jutsu would be shocked. The fact that Kakashi had taught Naruto, the so-called Dead Glass and Demon Brat, that jutsu, and within a month, pretty much they all kind of realised that there was more to Naruto, a lot more to Naruto, if the fact he managed to learn an A-rank complex jutsu within a month. And and obviously Sakura would kind of be confused at the jutsu, and would kind of ask or at least, and she'd look back as so much she'd hear Team 10 Sensei, you managed to teach him that, and within a month he managed to learn that jutsu within a month. Didn't it take you like a year or two to learn that jutsu, Kakashi? How the heck did he manage to do it within a month? Sakura turn around at that and go, what's on about, Sensei? As Kakashi would go, well, that jutsu, Sakura, as Naruto said, is the Rasengan. It's a jutsu the fourth Hokage created, and it took the fourth Hokage 4 years to learn it. It took then his sensei about a year or two to learn, and me a year or so to learn as well. Naruto had learned an A-rank jutsu in a month. And though he'd go, in fact it was less than a month he'd learned it. And and the thing about it is that jutsu isn't quite truly complete yet. It's usable, but not truly complete. And though Sakura just somewhat kind of look back in shock and somewhat awe, and at the kind of seemingly at what Naruto had managed to do. And though Sasuke would obviously try and he'd activate his Sharingan and would try to copy it to no success. And he'd somewhat just glare at Naruto, though he'd scoff, thinking it wasn't much, or anything, if anything to do. And and though Neji himself would somewhat kind of scoff as well, it wasn't really anything, though as it would go on he'd start to find it hard to keep up spinning, and he'd start to realise that if Nat managed to get through, he would be he'd be in danger. And as time would go by, of course he'd start to sweat, and eventually it's like Kakashi could actually see the Rasengan start to swell in size. Naruto was dumping that much chakra into the Rasengan that it was starting to grow, and Kakashi sort of quietly feared that Naruto was losing control over it, but as he watched, he somewhat realised that Naruto wasn't losing control of it. It was just, he was throwing so much chakra at it that it just couldn't stay small any longer, and that it was growing bigger to handle the sheer amount of power Naruto was putting into it. And yeah, and he would pull up his Sharingan and he'd realise that it was spinning at least 100 times faster than it was when Naruto first did it, and it was spinning faster, it was getting faster and faster. And yeah, and that's the thing, the faster the Sharingan spun, the more damage it dealt. And it was just spinning faster and faster and faster, which meant it got harder and harder to keep it compressed. But yeah, that, and also, of course, more and more layers also being built within the Sharingan, getting even more, tightly compressed, and just, yeah. And so I knew that if that went bang, Naruto would probably be flung a somewhat fair distance, or at least would potentially be, if he didn't notice the fact that Naruto was also sending chakra into the ground, anchoring him also to the ground itself. So if it went bang, Neji would potentially be the only one flung away, unless the ground beneath Naruto very much gave away. Though Naruto would continue to do so when Neji would advance, when all of a sudden the rotation would, or at least would somewhat, the Neji's jutsu would finally give in, as Neji would be, or at least from the explosion of these jutsus, so Neji would be flung, both Neji and Naruto would be flung backwards. And yeah, the only difference was that, or at least, Naruto would be flung back and would hit the wall, be letting out some cry of pain, and yeah. And yeah, though he'd get himself out, though somewhat slightly panting, and yeah, though he'd wait and he'd walk forward, though as the dust and that's out, he'd see Neji there, and yeah, though Neji would pull himself from the wall, or at least from the floor, coughing and panting somewhat heavily due to the amount of chakra he used, and yeah. And they would just somewhat stare off as Neji would wonder, what, how is this possible? This wasn't possible. How could he defeat him? It was his destiny to win. And yeah, Naruto was the dead last of his, class. And yeah, it would, infuriate him, and yeah. And, well, yeah, he'd spat out what he, read in canon. And that. But, yeah, though Naruto, of course, it would somewhat anger him to it. At this point, Naruto would just run at him and would just simply, Neji was too tired to react in time, and Naruto would simply, with a chakra infused somewhat punch, would knock Neji out. And yeah, the proctor would come over and would say that Naruto was the winner. And yeah, from there, of course, the medics and Naruto would take Neji away, and Naruto would go up. And yeah, though Sasuke still didn't really think much of the jutsu, as somewhat, as he knew, from the Land of Waves, Naruto had a lot of chakra, even more so than that sensei, apparently. And well, that was clearly true if he managed to beat, a Hyuga. And yeah, then again, the jutsu could have just used, a small amount of chakra, so, yeah. Anyway, though, yeah, and so the other fights would, of course, go like in canon, up until the point of his fight to Richard, kind of smack, and he'd kind of, go down, with a, superior, attitude, like, win. And, yeah. And of course, and Kakashi knew that, what's his name, I forgot his name now, Konohamaru's somewhat personal tutor, I forgot his name now, what is his name? Oh, Abisu. I'd tried his best to teach, Sasuke, but, he wasn't, Sasuke wasn't having it, and kind of went off, on his own, and, yeah. Though Abisu did try his best to, but Sasuke just ignored him. And, yeah, this had gotten to the point of where Sasuke had a chat even with the Hokage. And, yeah, and Hiruzen, or at least after kind of, going to Hiruzen, or at least going to Hiruzen after hearing that, Hiruzen had somewhat told him that Kakashi was kind of right to actually not really train Sasuke, as his fears of Sasuke potentially going rogue, well, there was a high chance of that, as it seemed like the curse did flare up a few times. And one of those times had landed him a talk with him, and yeah, Kakashi would nod, and yeah, he'd somewhat sigh, and yeah, and well, from there though, well, yeah, he was somewhat bound, well, yeah, and well, somewhat, of course, Sasuke would try his best, but he'd easily be defeated by, what's his name? He wouldn't be defeated by himself. He'd easily be defeated by Gaara. And yeah, to which point the party then somewhat state after that they'd be because Gaara wouldn't even, feel like, Sasuke was even worthy of being killed. And yeah, and well, that and the proctor, and well, yeah, and stepped in and was more than ready to fight a one-on-one fight against a Jinchuriki. And yeah, so he'd just leaving the sunshine as the partner to call out that obviously Gaara was the winner, and that there'd be a break, to which of course would happen. And yeah, and after those 10 minutes or so, and with Sasuke going to the hospital ring, he'd call out the next fight, with everyone being back in that. He'd call out like the next fight of the training exams would be Naruto Uzumaki and Gaara of the desert. And yeah, Naruto would kind of somewhat let a somewhat kind of shaky sigh, though he knew that if he stayed with the idea of just getting all the sand that Gaara used wet enough that it would become heavy, and of course the heavier it got, the slower it would be, and hopefully slow enough for him to actually be able to land some hits, and if not, well, he could always use the Rasengan to kind of drill into the sand and hopefully cause some damage that way, and hopefully enough to kind of hopefully get him knocked out or that. And yeah, and so the fight would begin. And yeah, with Gaara sort of, but yeah, just sending out tentacles of sand to which Naruto would sort of run and dodge. And yeah, though sort of after a bit, Naruto would kind of sort of go, would somewhat, or at least would decide that he'd finally had enough and would kind of spawn 1,000, sort of himself doing the sort of using his both hands, to which Kakashi would muse over and would sort of wonder if Naruto, or at least Naruto only similarly was maybe only able to do one-handed hand signs when he kind of really had a goal in mind, when he had a solid focus. Could he do a single-handed hand sign? And yeah, and if so, did that mean he could potentially do one no hand, could do jutsu without doing hand signs? Well, it was possible. It was Naruto after all. So yeah. And so from there, of course, having 1,000 of them, Gaara would have to, he'd start making more tentacles of sound, which would thankfully give Naruto enough time, as Naruto would sort of focus. And yeah. And after a while, with his last current dispelling, and sand rushing at him, Naruto would call out water style, water billet, as a small billet of water would form in front of him out of thin air, to which would surprise everyone again, and here's the Kazekage, aka what's his name? Sorry guys, I've forgotten his name. The snake and Orochimaru, something to be shocked, as the only person to ever do what Naruto had done was the second Hokage, and that was just use a water jutsu without any water, which meant he was pulling water from the air itself. And yeah, and from there, of course, he'd shoot forward and managed to get some of Gaara's sand wet, and that's when Hiruzen would realise what Kakashi's plan was. If Naruto could get Gaara's sand wet enough, of course it would slow down, potentially to a point where Gaara may not even be able to control it, and if you got no sand to control, well, Naruto would hopefully be able to land a punch or two, or even a Rasengan onto Gaara. And it was kind of somewhat brilliant. It was somewhat, if it would hopefully work. And so from there you'd continue to do so, and eventually Gaara would end up kind of losing it, just making a ball around him, and seeing the ball of sand, Naruto would cast up, he'd form a shadow clone running at Gaara with a Rasengan, as he'd proceed to drill it into the ball of sand, to which it would give way easily, and to which you would then all his Gaara would then let a cry of pain as Naruto would let it disperse, blowing Gaara out the other side. And as Gaara would look up, as he'd go, as there'd be cuts and that all over him, as he'd go, my blood, blood, he'd kind of freak out as as Orochimaru then give the signal to start the invasion. And with that, guys, I am going to end this part here. So if you have enjoyed this part, do tell me in the comments down below. And guys, hope you guys have a good day or night, depending on wherever you are and whenever you watch this. And good bye.